how high can house prices get? You know, they're already unaffordable.
Yeah,
you get to a point where it's like, how much can someone pay? And they can't afford groceries. Sometimes it's a curse that we have this discipline or this work ethic, because you know, the chances are we're missing things that we shouldn't be missing because we're so focused on doing things we shouldn't be doing.
Like, so many people kind of just plan forever and never actually do anything. And I think you're so much better served just kind of, it sounds reckless, right? But shooting from the hip, just starting to do something and see how it progresses and make shifts and changes from there. When you lose focus of why you're actually doing the shit that you're doing, it makes it a lot more challenging to be effective and efficient in what you're doing.
Don't even get me started. My first loan was a adjustable rate that basically the loan officer had me commit fraud on to get. And it's crazy stuff back then.
Welcome back to the Revamp podcast. Super excited today. If you're new here, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps us have new, awesome, and amazing guests like we have today. Super excited for this one, man.
Yeah, me too, dude. I'm excited. Thanks
Joe Evangelisti.
Yeah.
Man. How do I even intro you? I have to go back down like memory lane, right? So like, I guess we got connected through Facebook, social media, right? Like you were crushing it on social media. And at the time, did you even have a mastermind group going when we first met? Like, I know you were doing the roundtable groups and everything, and I had gone to a couple of those. Right. And then you created the mastermind group. So like, backstory is that's how I know you. You became my first like mentor in the world of real estate investing and everything. And that's why I'm so excited to have you, man. It's like, I really owe like a big ticket of gratitude to you for kind of helping me shape a lot of the things that I did in the past, 5-6 years of my life and my business, man. So thanks so much for coming on, Joe.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, no, it's awesome to be here. It's awesome to see like what you've created. I'm not just saying that for the pod, but the leaps and changes. And dude, I know exactly how we first met. You came to one of my events, and at that time, I don't know if it was you or was another guy. It was between the two of you. I was doing these 2-day events, and I was doing them for years, man. I was doing them for probably 3 or 4 years when you finally came to one, and you had a different business partner at the time, and you guys came, and at the end of the event, somebody was like, yo, what's next? What's next? Like, what do we do after this? And I'm like, well, come to the next one. It's going to be in 2 months. And you're like, all right, I'll come to the next one. But then what?
Then what?
Then what? And then you guys kind of like urged me to do the mastermind thing, which was cool for a long time. And I got a lot out of that. And I hope you guys did as well. But yeah, man, it was just, it's that concept of like, the art is in the start. You just got to get something going, and then you start to decide like how to shape it as it evolves. And that's how the mastermind was created.
Fully agree, man. And that's a beautiful thing, right? Like, so many people, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but like, so many people kind of just plan forever and never actually do anything. And I think you're so much better served just kind of, it sounds reckless, right? But shooting from the hip, just starting to do something and see how it progresses and make shifts and changes from there.
Yeah, ready, fire, aim for sure.
Faux show. So Joe, I know you very well. Take the viewers back through like your journey. How did you make your entrance into real estate to get to the point where you were able to help and coach people like me through our real estate journey?
Yeah, it's funny. I do all these podcasts, and the story kind of gets longer and longer because I'm getting old, I think. But, I generally start by telling people like I'm a construction guy at heart from the beginning, right? And you and I have that in common. But like I grew up in the construction industry. I grew up as a son of a general contractor, drywall guy. I did construction all throughout my childhood and high school, and really, really loved it. And, after high school, I got this urge to kind of join the military. Like I thought, I'm gonna go serve my country. And, I felt like it was the right thing to do. I was gonna create some discipline. And I almost joined the Marine Corps, but I was lucky enough that one of the foremen that worked for my dad that I worked for at the time was a retired Navy Seabee. And a lot of people don't know what the Seabees are, but they're the construction battalions of the Navy. Effectively, we go everywhere by air, we go on land, we build things. We're literally like carpenters of the Navy. And a lot of people don't know that it exists, but spent 6 years being a carpenter for the Navy, went and did some amazing projects all around the world in different countries and different areas. And, effectively came back, met my wife, ended up back in Jersey, back in the general contracting business. And that was like the 2005 to 7 range. And decided to like, man, I want to do real estate. Back then, and it's still said today, but like how are all the millionaires made in the world? And everyone says real estate, real estate, real estate. And I was like, dude, this is it. So I jumped in both feet in 2007, and I did everything you could possibly do wrong. Just everything you could do
That's
wrong.
the way.
That's the way, right? So we started flipping houses in 2007. I had about 3 properties under construction, and a lot of people don't realize that 2008 crash really started in like 2007. Right. So we got in the end of 2007, and I mean, literally, it was like as soon as I took the title to the property, the value started dropping immediately. So we were chasing this market down, trying to decide what to do. You know, effectively, we got to a point where we were probably break even if we sold the properties. And so we pivoted. Never really wanted to be a landlord, but I'm like, dude, if we put a tenant in here, we can get our, you know. So we had different exit strategies planned out ahead of time, which was good. I had a good mentor at the time, and I was able to stabilize those first 3. Put tenants in there, get long-term money back from our bank. But the problem was, like, we bought them conventionally. I put 20% down. I had my entire life savings in these 3 deals.
Up.
And I'm like, what do I do next? I got to pivot. I got to figure this out. So we became landlords, but then it was like, okay, how do I do more deals? You know, I got to keep the lights on, you know? And I had a job. I was still in general contracting, but I was making peanuts. I mean, don't even get me started. My first loan was a adjustable rate that basically the loan officer had me commit fraud on to get. And it's crazy stuff back then. But long story short, we pivoted. We were able to course correct a little bit. And I got into dealing with foreclosures and short sales and bank workouts. And it was the Wild West back then. I mean, I did assignments. They weren't even called assignment. They weren't called wholesale. They were just, you know, we sold contracts.
It's just what you did. Yeah.
Just what you did. So, you know, we figured it all out. I got into being a broker, a realtor, a flipper. Ultimately, we did enough volume and pipeline that people kept asking us, how'd you guys do it? All right, cool. I'll do some 2-day events. And then ultimately led to our mastermind.
Wow, man. You're definitely condensing that timeline there for sure, because I understand through that growth phase, there had to be a lot of stuff.
A lot.
Like through that ramping up, right? Getting good at fix and flip, getting good at wholesale. What were some of the challenges through that?
Yeah. So my first initial challenge, I remember really, really well. And it's like a lot of people's challenges that I find, I'm sure you find in the industry, is I was a one-man show forever, man. Like through everything that I just said, I never had an employee. You know, I was probably 2014, 15 before I hired my first assistant.
Wow.
So, I mean, I was like running a brokerage, running a real estate team, running a flip business, trying to wholesale, bartending nights and weekends. I mean, that's a good time frame right there. My first daughter was born in 2012 or 29. And for the first 3 years, I was bartending to pay her daycare.
Okay.
So I was working 5 jobs, you know, so probably 2013, something like that. I finally hired an assistant. And so I was a one-man show. And so that was one of the biggest learning curves, was like, there's only so many hours of the day and you can only be productive for so many of those hours. Mm-hmm. And dude, I was at the point where I was like, I'll just work 120 hours a week. I don't care, whatever it takes to be successful. And I think that comes with maturity and time and lessons learned that, you know, if you really want to scale anything, and I don't love that word scale, but if you really want to grow something, you have to learn to leverage. You have to learn to trust people and hire people. And, you know, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. Do you think that having that foundation where you had what's the word for it? I don't know, the grit to push through that and work 120 hours a week when you had to and everything. I think a lot of people don't have that.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
And I know that you're big on, you know, replacing yourself in roles with people, systems, processes, and everything. Yeah. But do you think it's possible for people that don't possess that, I don't know, hard work ethic, I'm going to call it, to be able to achieve scale, even though you just said you hate that word?
Yeah, you know, in fact, I've come to find out that I feel like over the course of time and coaching hundreds and hundreds of people, started to figure out that I think it's actually better off sometimes. I think you and I are built with that gene that we'll just work our asses into the ground.
Yep.
And I sometimes think that being lazy is the best way to do it.
It's a blessing and a
curse. I have clients that are lazy and I'm like, dude, it's so awesome you're lazy.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that sometimes it's a curse that we have this discipline or this work ethic, because, you know, the chances are we're missing things that we shouldn't be missing because we're so focused on doing things we shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, man. So much to unpack there. But so you brought on an assistant. That was the first role that you kind of brought in-house?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're making decent enough money where, maybe you can't quite afford to, but you're on that cusp, the absolute best thing you can do is get somebody to take off some of the lower level activities. And generally an assistant, executive assistant, whatever you want to call that person, frankly, I think is the first good in-person hire. I think a lot of people try to do that with VAs, and you can get a lot of things off your plate with a VA, but there's nothing replaces an in-person assistant that's sitting next to you, that's learning your business, that's understanding the ins and outs of how you like things done. And yes, it's going to cost you more money, especially if you're in the United States. But the reality of it is, I think that the ROI on that hire is just almost untouchable compared to other things you can hire for.
Fully agree, man. And I've had an executive assistant ever since I met you as a result of that advice and feedback. And I think too many entrepreneurs in all different industries are slow to make that decision, exactly like you said, because of the cost of it and everything. But it's one of them positions that you really can't calculate the ROI on it at all, because there's so many things that any business owner does on any given day or week that are not revenue generating activities that, by the way, inherently, by nature, entrepreneurs are usually not very fucking organized. Terrible. Right? We're very bad at a lot of things that somebody in a executive assistant role is really good at. They're wired for it, you know?
Yeah. No, and they're actually usually wired the opposite. To your point, they're wired the opposite of how we think, right? So a lot of times they're going to be more follow through. They're going to be more organized. They're going to be more poignant about what happens at what time. So one of the best things that I advise a lot of clients with if they're getting their first VA is just make me as productive as possible. Now, whether that's personally or professionally, it's either a high income activity or I call it a high gain activity where I'm becoming a better person. Like for me, I know you just took on jujitsu, right? If I don't do jujitsu a certain amount of days a week, I feel like crap. If I don't go to the gym a certain amount of days, if I don't read, if I don't, have great conversations, so I want that stuff as far as high gain on my calendar because it's going to help me become a better person. And I think that's where the first stuff to fall away. And dude, I know this from experience, right? My first 10 years, I probably put on 50 pounds. I mean, I got totally out of shape. I wasn't committed to my body. I really wasn't learning aside from, learning in the trenches. Yeah. And so what happens is your health and your welfare suffers, right? I probably missed a lot of younger year stuff with my kids that I wish I hadn't missed. I probably could have been a better father, a better husband, a better friend to a lot of my friends because I was in grind mode. I'm going to build. You had to be. And so I think if you get an EA in the right timing, especially if you do it while you're a little younger, they get them to kind of force you to have a schedule that allows you to schedule time. I talk about this all the time, but if you're, especially married men that are listening to this, you better be dating your wife at least twice a week or twice a month rather. How many guys are married for 8-10 years? They hate their marriage. They hate their wife. They hate their relationship, but they don't invest anything into it. And it's like anything else. I know I'm going off on a tangent there, but that's the time where, I want scheduled date nights. I want scheduled flowers being delivered to the house. I want scheduled time with my daughters. I want daddy-daughter dates. I want, all that stuff is probably equally, if not arguably way more important than the high income activities that I'm going to do in a given week.
I fully agree, man. Because that's the thing. At the end of the day, what we do professionally to make money, a lot of it sucks. A lot of it is really challenging. So when you lose focus of why you're actually doing the shit that you're doing, it makes it a lot more challenging to be effective and efficient in what you're doing, man. Yeah. So I love that. I love that.
Absolutely.
All right, so you're ramping up, you're scaling up, you're wholesaling houses. It's not even really kind of, defined as that in that time. You're flipping more houses and everything. You're building a rental portfolio. And you mentioned that even early on, you had a mentor of your own, right? So how does mentorship and coaching kind of play a factor in your growth for you?
Yeah. I've been really, really lucky, man, in that I have always had mentors. I mean, as far as my career has been, right? And I feel like I had mentors in high school too, but I was always really lucky. I think the military kind of ingrained it in me. If I want to get to a certain level, I need to find the person whose level I'm trying to chase. I need to get in with them. Now, military is a little bit differently because you're obviously not paying for coaching or paying for mentorship, but it's the same process, same concept. And so I think I've just been wired to always seek the person that I'm trying to reach that level of and engage in them. To me, it was scary the first time. I remember the first time I paid $5,000 for a 2-day event, and my mentor at the time was like, trust me, it's going to change your entire life. And he was right. Now, Do I think that that's been exploited to a point where everyone in the world is doing it and maybe a lot of them shouldn't be? Absolutely. But we're talking 12 years ago, 15 years ago. I remember paying for that thing, and literally the second I sent the wire, I was like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I already feel like I've overcome an obstacle and a challenge. And so just the process of getting involved is number one. But to me, having mentors, again, that have been there, done that, in the capacity that I'm trying to chase is super important. And now fast forward to today, I mean, I probably have 7 or 8 different paid coaches in different worlds. And, I do private jujitsu lessons. I have a business coach. I have a communications coach. I just hired a health coach that starts on Monday. So to me, I'm always trying to figure out okay, where can I put my chips in and get the ROI? Again, is it time I'm getting back? Is it health I'm getting back? Is it money I'm getting back? Something is coming back from that investment. And you know as well as I do, sometimes your biggest investments, this is kind of a funny side story, I'll tell you, going along with the wholesale stuff. I went to a Rich Dad seminar back in the day, man. It might have been 2010, 2011, I don't know. And I remember the ticket was like $200 to get in the room, and me and my partner sat there. And for 2 days, all they talked about was increasing your credit limit on your credit card. You ever heard this story before?
No.
So dude, the guy gets on stage. He's posting pictures of him in his Bentley, and he's a young kid, and this is me at the country club, and this is me in front of a private jet. And again, this is before all that stuff was like over popularized. And he's saying, look, you can call your credit card company and expand your credit. You can get more credit. You can get different lines of credit. So they talk about credit for the whole day. Of course, your homework is go home and call Amex, call Visa, call MasterCard, and expand your credit. The next day they come in and they go, okay, our entire real estate investing platform system is $25,000. But now you guys got the credit.
Yeah.
So go talk to our people. And I was like, damn, I'm like, in a way it was deceiving. It was crazy, but it was kind of brilliant. All they gave you was a 3-ring binder, dude. That was the whole, there was no meeting, there was no coaching, there was no mentorship. But I remember sitting there with that 3-ring binder in the next week or two. First of all, immediately pissed off that I made the investment. Of course, my wife's not happy with me. And I go, okay, how do I make this worth it? And I'm telling you, man, I learned how to wholesale in that binder. I never even knew what the concept was. I never even know what it meant. But meanwhile, I also had dozens and dozens of short sale properties under contract that I couldn't afford to take all down because I didn't have enough lenders. So I would start calling my friends who were builders and say, hey man, I got this flip. I need to close from the bank. It's got to close in 30 days. And one of my buddies said to me, and this is kind of the same time frame, he said, what do you want for it? And I'm like, I just want you to close, man. Like Bank of America is expecting me to close. I'm going to get screwed if I don't close. And he's like, no, what do you want for it? I'm like, I just need you to close. Do you have the money to close, right? And he was like, yes, jackass, but what do you want for it? I go, I don't know. Mark, just take the deal. And he's like, I'm going to give you $5,000. I'm like, okay, why? And he's like, dude, you're bringing me opportunities. You deserve to get paid for the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that was my first real wholesale. And that happened at the same time I had that binder in front. I was like, oh my God, this works. And that was really like again, they didn't call it wholesale back then. And I don't even know if I had a name for it, but I assigned the contract to him, put him in as the buyer, got a $5,000 payday, and it was off to the races after that.
Dude, that's awesome. What a great story. Yeah. So you did invest that $25,000 in the Rich Dad program?
Yep. And I guaranteed in that first 9 months, I think I made back double just from selling short sales.
Everything you just explained, I agree with fundamentally, fully to my core, right? I think it's perfectly logical to be like, why wouldn't I? Mm-hmm. You look at any sports players, right? Professional sports or even amateur, right? It's like, well, everybody has a coach. Yeah. Everybody has somebody to look up to. Everybody has somebody that helps them get better, right? But for some reason in the business world, there's this giant stigma around paying coaches, paying mentors is like the dumbest thing that you can do, and it's a waste of money. And it's like, dude, I'm living proof of it, and you are as well. It's like, I think there's a fundamental mindset shift though, because I'm sure you can speak to this and this is going to be a question for you. There's a lot of people that aren't really coachable and trainable as well that probably have come into your life and they're expecting the world. They're expecting a magic pill because people are generally pretty lazy, right? And it's like, well, if I'm going to pay Joe, whatever it is, $50,000 a year to coach me, I want Joe to make my business 10X. Yeah. And it's like, no, dude. At the end of the day, the only one that's going to do that is you. And I can help you and I can guide you there, right? Yeah. But so what's your experience on people that are just kind of not really coachable?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I literally just had this conversation 2 hours ago. So I have a client who is becoming a coach, and she's been working with me, and she's trying to start her coaching book of business. And I was explaining to her, and this is true to anybody. I would say this in front of a prospective coach or someone who's thinking about getting into consulting or whatever it is. It's more about qualifying the prospect than it is about can they afford me, right? A lot of people can write a check for 20 grand, 50 grand, 100, whatever it is. And again, what is that person's expectations? So what I'm trying to figure out, especially on our first breakthrough call, I call it, is this person going to be able to get results that completely blow away the investment, right? That you should look at coaching as an absolute priceless investment because of the change that you're making, right? That's why I call it transformational coaching. I don't want to coach someone who's not willing to transform or create what we call a paradigm shift, right? And me and you have had this conversation so many times, but if you can look yourself in the mirror and you look exactly like the person 6 months ago or 12 months ago, you're not the person I want to work with.
Yeah.
Like I want people that want to make massive change, massive leaps, massive, whether that's, having the guts to quit your W-2 and double down on yourself or start to scale your business or actually start to admit the problems that are created in your business and let your ego go. Me and you have both been there, or have that tough conversation with the person that shouldn't be working for you to begin with. You got to make difficult decisions.
Yeah,
and
man.
Difficult decisions in real life start in the mirror.
Yeah, man.
So if I can't make sure that person's really coachable, I call it defiantly committed, right? Too many people are interested in coaching. That's an interesting concept. I'm interested in coming to your event. No, you're not. You're not interested in coming to my event. You're committed to coming to my event because people who are just interested tend to be the tire kickers. They tend to be the analysis paralysis people. We mentioned this earlier. They tend to be the people who will bring you a deal and you're looking at it going, that's the greatest deal I've seen all year. What's going on? And they're going, yeah, but what? But what if? But what next? And so those are not the people I want to coach with. And to be honest with you, when I transitioned from group coaching to one-on-one coaching, Drew, I had a handful of people not get immediate results. And I had to start saying to myself, what am I doing wrong? And then I realized I'm selecting people who can pay me, not people who can do the work and get the results.
Yeah.
I want the people who are going to make that massive transition. That way, no matter what you're paying me, it looks like chicken shit compared to what you're getting out of it.
Right.
Now you make me look good and I make you look good.
That's right.
That's the point.
I love that, man. So as you were kind of going through that and learning the whole business model, if you will, from the perspective of a coach, what were some of the internal struggles that you dealt with to that point, right? Like, oh, well, I had this guy and he paid me a lot of money and he's not getting results or whatever. Was that challenging for you? Was it emotionally draining, I'd imagine?
Dude, it's let me tell you, there's nothing, I call this business the gift and the curse. I'm getting really kind of sensitive, what do you call it? Personal, I guess. But yes, it's super challenging because we're all humans, right? I literally just had this conversation yesterday. I did an entire presentation, a keynote on imposter syndrome. We all deal with imposter syndrome. I deal with imposter syndrome. I know you do. Every one of us, when we go through a breakthrough or a paradigm shift, we're becoming somebody different. And so you have to let go of all the other decisions and thoughts and actions that got you to this point, because what's going to get you to this point is not the same. They're not the same decisions. They're not the same actions. So what I had to learn as a coach personally was I need to ask more questions. I need to get deeper. I need to figure out what's really the problem. I need to not be afraid to push past, okay, well, the client's crying. Okay, we're going to keep talking. We're going to get through this. We're going to get past this point, because the breakthroughs happen on the other side of doing the hard work. And that's true for me the same way it's true for you, the same way it's true for coaches. I find that the coaches that don't get the results are the ones that aren't asking deep enough questions, because you're not hitting the pain hard enough to get things to change, right? And we all know nothing changes until it becomes so painful that you decide to make a change. And so that's what I think good coaching is asking the right questions at the right time, getting people obviously inspired and motivated to do things. But that inspiration and motivation only takes you so far. I got to have a good passion, a good purpose, and an outcome that I'm going to seek that really shifts me from where I'm at today. Then when I start seeing progress towards that, now it's like, whoa, this is game changing. This is different.
Yeah, man. I love that. I love that. Yeah. So obviously you start by doing the 2-day events, you start doing group coaching, then kind of start, like you said, going more to the one-on-one coaching.
Yep.
What are some of the pros and cons of doing group coaching versus one-on-one?
Yeah, well, let's straightforward. Group coaching is way easier because you got, 8, 10, 20 people, 100 people on one call once a week, right?
Yeah.
So timing-wise, super easy. I can do a lot of high level trainings. And the reality of it is most of those people that show up and they pay attention, they take good notes, and they do activities after the fact, they're going to get good results. But what I learned in that group coaching atmosphere, back when we had Inner Circle Family, was that the people dealing with sometimes the biggest challenges, look, if you hop on a group coaching call and you have a question about marketing, yeah, dude, send these postcards, do this, change that. But if you hop on a group coaching call with 20 people and you just got into a pissing match with your business partner and your wife's threatening to divorce you and your kids hate you and your whole life's fallen to shit, you're not going to raise your hand and be like, yo, Joe, can we talk about this in front of 20 people? Yeah. And I get that. Like that's, so what I learned was I can't go as deep on group. Now, that doesn't mean there's not good results there. That doesn't mean that, for the right investment, they're going to get the right returns. But at the end of the day, the real transformational stuff happens one-on-one.
I totally agree. And that makes so much sense. Like I was having a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago about the whole mentorship and coaching and masterminds and all this stuff. And thinking back and kind of reflecting on it, I think most of the things that I have done, because I've spent shit tons of money at this point in my life on all of those things, right? But I think most of it for me was never to gain knowledge. It was more so like with a group like yours, it was to gain a tight-knit family type of feeling, right? It's like a group. It's the networking aspect of it, and it's the confidence, right? And then as I went on and I joined some other groups and everything, it's like then it became, again, I'm not there to learn how to increase my marketing or fix a sales process or anything. Like at the end of the day, especially in the dawn of AI, fucking information is everywhere. You can figure everything out. You can't easily figure out, relationships with other high-level individuals that are walking the same path as you and everything. 100%. So I will gladly pay usually a lot of money to be in the right room with other heavy hitters that are, sharing the same mindset.
I think it's a smart play for anybody. It's an entrepreneur, that's a self-employed business, even C-suite executives. I mean, connections are everything in the world. And, probably what I've learned the most in the last 4 or 5 years is I'm always going to be part of 1 or 2 mastermind groups, and I'm still going to have a coach. I think that I for a long time, I kept those things mutually exclusive. I thought I was going to get both. And you're right. I think you can get good mentorship in a group, but nothing like what you can do one-on-one, and vice versa. You're going to get great connections one-on-one specific to, hey, I need an attorney, I need this, I need a publisher, you'll get good referrals, but again, you're not networking with 100 people or 500 people. So I think personally, I've started to get to a point where I'm always going to be in both, and for those different reasons you just mentioned.
Dude, I love that. Yeah. So talk a little bit about self-storage. I know you went down that rabbit hole. You started doing giant development projects and everything in the last couple of years and everything, and mind-blowing numbers and stuff. So how did that come to be?
Yeah, so that was really, I mentioned earlier, pain, creates the, reason for us to have to shift or create some sort of, Ed Milet had a good quote at the beginning of COVID. He said, adversity creates the seed for opportunity, right? Or adversity sometimes teaches us that we should have been doing it that way all along. I think a lot of people got that life lesson during COVID. But right before COVID, I was getting done one of our year-end wrap-ups on our flip business. And, I looked at my partner. We had done 88 deals that year. And I was like, all right, what do you want to do next year? You want to do 100? You want to do 110? And he was like, dude, I don't ever want to do 88 again. And I was like, thank God you said that, because I don't either. It was an absolute freaking nightmare. And I'm still of the belief at this point, and I know me and a lot of friends that are in the fix and flip business, I don't think it's ultimately a scalable business. To get over 100 flips a year, you got to be a different type of animal. You got to have a different type of team. I mean, I had 40, 50 people working for me at the time. And it was just a freaking rabbit. It was a mouse wheel. It was I used to joke, I could put $500,000 in the bank on Monday. I'd be zero by Friday.
Easily, many times,
blowing money. And so, as much as I love and respect and grew up in the flip business, it occurred to me that at that moment that this is too transactional, dude. I had managed at that time to acquire 115 doors in the rental business, mostly single family. And so I had a sizable portfolio. It was okay, whatever. But I'm like, how many deals? We flipped almost 1,000 houses in the last 12, 15 years, whatever. And we've kept 100. And that's my nest egg. And meanwhile, it's just, everything else is transactional. Make 50 grand, make 40 grand, make 50 grand. And it just goes right back out the door. And so I started thinking, okay, how do I scale and make it easier. Dan Sullivan has this, it might not be Dan Sullivan, don't quote me on that, but one of those guru guys talks about ELF businesses, right? Easy, lucrative, and fun. So I kept saying, like, how can we make it easier? How can we make it more lucrative? And shit, how can we maybe have some fun? Like, that was the other thing. I lost my passion for flipping. I'm kind of back into it now. I'm doing a couple just for fun, but like, I'm doing it for fun.
Yeah, man.
Back then, dude, I didn't even go to the site. I mean, the last 100 houses we flipped, I couldn't point to them on a map. I never even went there.
Yep.
So I lost all my passion for doing it, which was part of the problem. And then I wanted to make money for the first time.
Of course.
So I started looking at other commercial assets. I ended up going to, my buddy Tim Bratz was throwing an event. He used to do called Commercial Empire. It was all about acquiring apartment buildings. And I went into a room of like, I mean, he had 500 people at this event. And I remember the whole theme of the week was like, you have to put in 200 LOIs to get a deal. And I'm like, that sounds fucking miserable. Like, that's the definition of the red ocean. Like, I'm going to fight all 500 of you for the same 30 unit apartment company. No, I'm not doing that. So I started thinking, okay, where else can I go in the commercial world? And man, we got really, really lucky because frankly, when I got into self-storage, nobody was talking about it. It wasn't even a cool thing that people were like, what, you're doing what? And then of course it took off for 2 years. But then, like a lot of things, man, it's iced over for the last 18 to 24 months. Interest rates, nobody thought they were going to affect us the way they did. The REITs came in, they changed all the street rates. They dropped the prices through the floor. It's a bear, man. Like, don't get me wrong. We'll still do very well in it. And I don't plan on leaving that industry anytime soon, but we've gotten tremendously slower in the last 18 months, especially with new development sites. I mean, you're not going to find a bank that does new development loans right now. Going vertical is very difficult. Equity requirements are 3 or 4 times what they were 2-3 years ago. So do I think that the industry has legs? Absolutely. I think that there's still a ton of opportunity. In fact, I think, if I had a crystal ball, which I don't, I think in the next 6 to 18 months, you're going to see a lot of defaults happening, a lot of people up against the gun to refinance or stabilize. That being said, and this isn't a self-storage podcast, but that being said, we're also seeing a lot of banks start to figure out ways to, because the banks, let's face it, the banks don't want to take back hundreds of millions of assets. So they're figuring out ways. So I think we'll work through it. I think the industry will be just fine. And the one thing I've always loved about the storage industry, it's extremely small, dude. It's extremely small. Like when we came in, guns a-blazing back in 2020, I mean, we knew everybody within a year. I mean, I went to two conferences and I could tell you every builder in the country within 12 months. So it's a very small industry. It's a very tight knit industry. And I believe in the asset class wholeheartedly. But we're in a slow season.
That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. I want to take a step back real quick. So you mentioned like just kind of briefly flipping 1,000 houses. Holy shit. That's not something to breeze over. Right. But like my burning question with that is, what made you want to flip 1,000 houses in the first place?
Ego, 100% ego. In hindsight, look, at the time, I think a lot of the reasons I kept convincing myself, well, doing more would do more, and doing more will do this, doing more will do that. But in hindsight, it was all ego, it was all numbers, it was all numbers driven. It was all like, how do we get to 100 a year? And none of it made any, I wouldn't say it didn't make financial sense. I made money, right? Of course. I didn't make what I probably could have over that 10 or 12 year period. But I did really well. And it just became to a point where it was like a burnout thing. Yeah. I was like, dude, I don't know how many more we want to do. Now, probably worst timing ever to get out. Also the best timing to get into self-storage. So, it's kind of a good trade-off. I mean, man, I saw these guys flipping houses from 21 to 23, 4 that were just absolutely killing it on flips that we never got to see that, man. I did boring, basic flips, I buy them for 150, I put 50 into them, I sell them for 250. I'd make like 30 grand spread. That was our normal deal. Yeah. Of course, now you got guys that are making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 flipping a house. More power to them. I think that market, could potentially have sailed. I was talking to one of my partners the other day, like, how high can house prices get? They're already unaffordable. Yeah, you get to a point where it's like, how much can someone pay? And they can't afford groceries. So at some point, I don't think it's going to be a bubble. I don't think it's going to explode. I said this for years, that the faster it goes up, the quicker it comes down, right? So you're already seeing Florida get deflated because it went up super high. Our area and our tri-state area, we went up a solid, I don't know, your guess is as good as mine, 50% over the last 5 years. So could we come down 20 or 30? Yeah. But we didn't go up 300% to come down 150. You know what I mean? So I think we'll feel it. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I can't imagine how it hasn't happened yet.
Well, and that's just kind of on the homeowner front. Like one of the conversations that I've been having with my landlord buddies for the last like year and a half, 2 years, right? As a result of COVID, like everybody is just kind of like high-fiving, like, oh yeah, rents are up. You know, this unit that I was renting for $1,300, like, yeah, I had a turnover, but now I'm getting $1,950 and everything. And the conversation that's not happening enough is like, okay, well, yeah, but what happens economically for that tenant that is now paying $1,950 a month and they can barely afford that, and inflation's happening at a ridiculous pace? They're not making any more money. They might even be losing their job. At what point does it, not just on a small scale, but like on a really, really massive scale, does it become unsustainable? Because it's obvious, right? Like with the typical tenant, they are going to pay everything else before you. They're going to pay their phone bill. They're going to pay their electric bill. They're going to pay all their utilities. They're going to keep food on the table. And they're going to say, fuck Joe, the greedy landlord. 100%. He can wait.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't get too into politics or stay too close to it, but I did hear yesterday in one of my WhatsApp chats that there was a bill passed that's talking about rent control. And now they're talking about nationwide rent control. And the following segment, and these are a bunch of very wealthy guys that I'm in this chat with, we're saying that this guy's got a friend that has a $50 million portfolio in the Bronx that he's trying to short sale and get rid of because rent control, as we all know in New York City, is the absolute worst. And so like all these different, you know, really landlords have been pretty free of the BS except for COVID. But man, you start talking about nationwide rent control, nationwide rent increase, you know, limitations, stuff like that. You're changing the absolute game for everybody. And you're right. I think that real estate becomes very, very difficult. You know, we're actually we're in the process right now, potentially selling our portfolio for that reason. Because we go, okay, how much is the cash flow each month? Okay, not bad. What's the equity? It's huge, right? How much more do you think we can charge for rent? Not much. Yep. You know, okay, maybe it's time to cash out.
Yeah, man.
You know, so I think a lot of those conversations happen around the country.
You did liquidate like a good part of your rental portfolio in the last couple years, right?
Yeah, we've probably sold 30, 40 properties in the last 3 or 4 years.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. And some of that was just kind of strategic as well, free up capital and probably headache, nightmare bullshit with some of them.
Yeah, totally. Again, same thing. If I have a 3%, 3.5% rate on something and it's getting ready to balloon and go to 7 and I got 200 grand in equity in there, well, how long does it take me to get that 200 grand back? I'll just take it today and go do something else with it. So I've started to strategically take some chips off the table, reinvest them in different places, you know, up until 3 or 4 years ago, I was 100% in real estate. I mean, so it was like, okay, I got to start to figure out how to, you know, maybe I buy some money in the stock market or I don't know, whatever, but, you know, just to diversify a little bit.
Yeah, man. Jumping back real quick to that point that you mentioned with ego being kind of the driver of why you wanted to get to the point that I flip 100 houses a year and stuff like that, right? Like it was a similar thing for me. And we never realize it in the moment. It's always like looking back in hindsight and everything. Yeah. And I have now seen so many guys come into like their first mastermind group that I'm a part of or whatever. And it's just happened the same way so many times over and over and over again, where it's like I see a kid that's kind of like a solopreneur and he's making a shit ton of money, right? And he kind of has like some freedom and the lifestyle that he wants and everything. And he gets around guys like you, guys like me, and he thinks that's progress because you have a bigger team. You have a big office. Yeah. You got 100 deals a year. You're doing 20 million in revenue, whatever it is, right? Yeah. And it seems like that's progress. It seems like that's the next step, but that's the ego attacking you and saying, I am inadequate because I'm not doing the same amount of stuff that Joe is. Yeah. I'm not doing the same level of volume. Therefore, I am not good enough. And so many times, dude, I've seen the same thing unfold where guys that already kind of had the life they wanted go to try to achieve scale, what they believe scale is, and they end up miserable, man.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like, how do you get that message to people, like, about, as you can probably relate to this, like getting through to somebody as a coach, like, and helping them get clear on what it is that they really want?
Yeah, 100%. Dude, I love that question. I mean, look, first of all, let's boil it back, right? All problems are problems of perspective. I say this all the time, right? Your problems are your problems. My problems are my problems. Bezos has his own problems, right? Elon obviously has his own problems, right? you have to start to think and position yourself and make decisions based off what type of problems do I want to have? Do I want to have multiple $1 million problems? Do I want to have $100,000 problems? Do I have a hard time paying a $500 bill? Right? Because all of these problems are at a different level. They're the same freaking problems. They're just different zeros, right? So first thing I like to do is really take an audit of a snapshot of what that prospect looks like, right? What are they trying to create for real? What's their family situation? One of the things I do is called the Circle of Life Index, right? I basically look at and say, okay, what's your relationship status? What's your income status? What's your happiness status? What's your physical being status? Like, where do you rate yourself on a 1 to 10? And that generally shines a lot of light on stuff, right? You got guys that are making money or look really good on paper, and they're rating themselves a 2 out of 10 on physicality. They're rating their marriage a 4 out of 10. I got news for you. If you're a 4 out of 10 marriage, you could be making $10 million a day. It doesn't matter. You're miserable. You hate coming home. You don't want to see your wife. You don't want to talk to her. Your kids probably hate your guts, right? You probably have a hard time keeping friends, except for the ones that are, drinking, smoking, and then nights and weekends with you or whatever. You're just not showing up.
Yeah.
And until you point a spotlight on that thing, no amount of money is going to solve the problem. That's number one. Number two is putting into perspective what it really takes to be financially free. And so many times you'll have somebody come to you and go, I want to make $100,000 a month. Awesome. What are you going to do with that? Because what people don't understand is until you make 20 grand, 30 grand, 50, you make over 50 grand a month, it's really hard to figure out what to do with that.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And people will come, I think Gary Vee said this the best years ago. He was like, people, I like to use the scenario of like, I ask people, what do you think the top 10% in the world make and the country make? And they'll go, oh, I don't know, like $800,000 a year. They make 175 grand a year. What's the top 1% of America make? Oh, it's got to be $7 million a year. It's $450,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right? You get to $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month, dude. Nothing improves after that. You just have more money.
That's right.
So if you don't learn how to be happy with 5 or 10 or 15,000 a month, you ain't gonna be happy with 50. So let's fix the shit that's going on internally. Then we can go and scale, because then you'll make a bunch of money and it won't change or impact your lifestyle, because you'll wake up happy, you'll wake up in peace, you wake up content. You might not always be perfect. You might have problems to solve. There might be issues going on in your life. There might be external things you can't control. But guess what? If you figure out how to get content, all the controllables are fine.
Yeah.
And that's I think the reflection that a lot of people need to have, especially when they decide, let's go out and I'm gonna get 50 clients. Dude, let's start with 5.
Yeah.
Let's see if you like working with 5. I had a client come to me a couple months ago. He's starting a life insurance practice. And he's like, I need, 150 people paying $1,000 a month in their whole life. Okay, cool. What does that look like? How much money you make? We started doing the math, and it was like an exorbitant amount of money. I'm like, all right, what are you making now? Barely anything. So you want to go from barely anything to making crazy amounts of money, and you need 150 people to commit. It's like, don't overshoot it, right? Start slow, work your way up, see if you like it.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the things that's kept me the happiest over this course, and I think it's the same for you, I'm just guessing, you can confirm this, but having the ability to pivot and course correct and decide, you know what, this isn't serving me. That's not serving me. I'm going to let go of this. I'm going to change that. Like, dude, for what people know about me, they know probably 4 or 5 businesses I've had. I have probably had 40 businesses in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
I don't talk about 30 of them.
Right.
That I started and failed.
Yep.
So I'm very good at deciding, this serves me and this doesn't serve me. This makes me financially good. This doesn't. This takes time from me. This earns me back time. And I try to teach that, especially to the younger entrepreneurs that, again, come in all full of piss and vinegar and want to take on the world.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That was a long-winded way of saying that.
No. I love that. I think that's super helpful and impactful. And just as you were talking, I was just kind of reflecting back on, I think one of the most impactful, I guess, activities that you kind of had me go through years ago was, I think it might have originated as like a Tony Robbins thing, but it's like you did it with me, and it's like what do you call it? Like the 7 layers deep or something.
Yeah.
And so explain what that is fundamentally is just asking why.
No,
right?
It's really, really good. And it's, who does a great job of explaining this? Dean Graziosi wrote a book called The Millionaire. Oh man, I'm going to blank on it. Millionaire something, but Millionaire Mentor or something like that. But if you look up his book, Dean learned it from a guy, ironically, named Joe Stumpf. And Joe Stumpf was a back of the day real estate trainer, realtor trainer. So when I first got my license, I actually learned this from Joe and almost forgot about it. And then I learned it again from Dean. But the whole concept really is asking deeper questions. You know, I said this earlier about coaching clients. A lot of people are very surface level when it comes to trying to work with people. And I find that if you just go one or two questions deeper, everything changes, right? So somebody might say, for example, I'm going to do a terrible job of coming up with an analogy on this, but like if somebody was trying to buy a house, I would say, well, why do you want to be in Haddonfield? I want to be in the school system. Okay, cool. How old are your kids? Blah, blah, blah. And my kids are 7, 8, and 10. Okay, cool. Why is it important that your kids have a good education? They're like, oh, well, I never had that growing up. And they start reflecting back on it. Okay, cool. So why do you think that it's important that because you never had that growing up, that now your kids have it? Now they start getting into, well, I want to do things different. Dude, it gets very emotional.
It does.
It gets very, I mean, I've done this with lots of people. I'm not proud to say this, but lots of them cry. Lots of them really think through things. Like, it gets you thinking at a deeper level. So, okay, great. Well, you never had the education growing up. Now your kids are going to have that education. What does that mean to you? Why is that important? Well, I can show my parents that I took the family one more level, one more, And so now it's not about, do I want to be in Haddonfield, Haddon Heights, Haddon Township, or, Collingswood? It's, I want to be in Haddonfield because it's going to change family lineage and my legacy, and it's going to make my family proud of me, and my parents are going to be proud that I have a house here and all this. Now we're not just looking for a house, dude. We're changing a life.
Yep.
And the same thing can be said through business, can be said through relationship. Go 7 levels deep with somebody who's having a hard time with their marriage. Yeah. They leave there thinking, oh my God, I'm really grateful for my wife. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't talk about this openly a lot, but like I've been married 18 years 2 days ago. So
happy anniversary.
Thank you. And there was a good chunk of time where I don't want to say I didn't want to be married, but I mean, I was at the point where I was like self-sabotaging my marriage because I didn't have enough gratitude, respect for her, thinking I could do better for whatever reason, or, maybe I feel trapped. There's a million reasons why marriages kind of go wrong. And it took me really getting deep on, well, why do I want to be married? What makes her amazing? Why is it, why am I grateful to have her in my life? And now I wake up every day and I'm like, I'm so grateful that I have this woman in my life. She's absolutely amazing. She's everything that I've always, and I mean that genuinely because of reflecting on, the good and the bad. Why I'm so happy to be in my marriage. And I should be, right? Because I'm lucky as hell. Yeah. And so I think it's just a matter of problems of perspective. What lens am I going to see that through? And am I going to decide to focus on all the negatives, or am I going to decide to focus on all the opportunity?
That's right. You have the choice. So you have the choice. Who is it like that you coach today?
Lots of people. So, lots of walks of life, I should say. So I originally started out as like a real estate coach. And then actually I did a post about this the other day. What I've started to find was most businesses are attached to the real estate business, whether or not they're insurance sales guys or, other coaches, or I have general contracting clients. I have commercial development clients. I have attorneys. I have, all different walks of life. But a lot of them go back to, like, I was on a call yesterday with one of my general contracting clients, and his GC company's taken off. He's making a ton of money. He's been paying rent since I've known him. And he's like, I got this opportunity to buy this off-market deal from this friend of mine who's, unfortunately, him and his dad own it together, and the dad's got stage 4 cancer, and he doesn't want to be in the business anymore, in this long story. But we started getting into, okay, how do we create creative financing out of this? I don't want to see you go out there and put 20% down and pay 7.5% interest on something. Why not make it mutually beneficial? This guy doesn't need the cash right now. His dad's dying, getting lots of insurance money, other stuff. So the real estate's separate. How do we create a creative finance deal where you can buy this from him over the course of time with terms at 0% interest? He makes more money. You get a deal. You have equity day one. And he was just like deer in the headlights. Like, how do we do that? Yep. So of course I went to GPT and I was like, here's the deal, lay it out. And I've built a couple different models inside of that. We can talk about that too. And then literally in 30 seconds, here's the whole play. Go to him. Here's a letter, here's an LOI. Here's how you make the offers. And, effectively you're taking a guy who, easily makes a couple $100,000 a year, but he's going to buy into a couple $100,000 in equity day one of a deal. And so, I guess the question you asked was, who are they? They're all walks of life, men, women, mostly business owners, lots of C-suite executives that are, maybe they don't own the business, but they're the COO or, they're in the, top 3 spots. And, we work on life and we work on business because I really believe holistically from experience, your business isn't going to get better until your life gets better.
Dude, fully agree. And to that point again, like, with anybody that has some sort of a high stakes situation, there is no better way to get clarity than somebody that has a lot of experience helping somebody gain clarity through that situation, right? So for me personally, like, I guess it was 3-4 years ago, I was dealing with a business issue. I had just gone through like scaling up like crazy and everything. And I was having a lot of success. Even after COVID, I was kind of seeing like a lot of other business owners that were in the same field as me. They were mostly focused on wholesale. They also fix and flip, whatever. But I started to see a lot of them kind of dry up and go out of business as a result of COVID. But I wasn't seeing that. I wasn't experiencing that. And I was scaling up like crazy. I was hiring left and right and everything was just freaking awesome. Yeah. And then I was having some like intercompany, like basically HR type of issues, but it had me like such internal conflict that I was like, dude, I'm going to blow up my fucking business or I'm going to rip out my hair or I'm just going to quit. Like, cause I don't know what to do. Yeah. Right. And at that time I hired a coach. I think ultimately I ended up paying him like 20 grand and it blows people's minds, right? Because it's like ultimately I paid 20 grand for probably like 6 hours of this dude's time over the course of a couple weeks. And at the end of the day, reflecting back, the advice and clarity that he gave me was the decision that I came to on my own anyway.
Sure.
But it gave me the confidence and clarity to go make that decision and do what I knew I needed to fucking do in the first place. And it kept me from blowing up my multi-million-dollar business that without that, who knows what would have happened.
I love that. I love you use the word clarity there because that's what it is. Like I tell people all the time, nobody needs a coach, right? You don't need a coach. You have the answers. If you're capable of figuring them out on your own, whether it's through journaling or reading or podcasting or shouting in the mirror, I don't know.
Whatever works.
Awesome. What really great coaches do is they find the answers within you that you already know you had, right? And then create a strategy around how do we get the outcome. That's what we do in a nutshell, right? All of my clients know the answers already. They know the answers, or they maybe just need a connection to somebody.
That's right.
Or they need to know, hey, have you ever tried this or whatever? But the reality of it is they all know deep inside what the answers are. And sometimes it just takes a lot. I did this 2 or 3 years ago. I hired a guy for 10 grand a month for almost a year to basically tell me, you need to simplify your life. That was it. That was in a nutshell. I was like, I paid 100 grand for you to tell me to simplify my life. And you know what? He was right.
He was right.
He was right. I cut out a bunch of shit. I killed a couple, dangling businesses that were barely making money. Like sometimes you just need someone to remind you what you already know and then give you the confidence to go do what you know you need to do. And that could come in the form of a tough conversation or a new partnership or, burning something to the ground.
Dude, I love that. That's super helpful. So you mentioned today you're back to doing a couple fix and flips here and there. Yeah. Like, what is that like? Yeah, no, I'm doing small, I only do stuff on like joint venture type of thing, which is what really funny was doing 10 years ago, right? But like I had a couple clients that wanted to get in the business. They're looking for funding. Now, how do we put the pieces together? Okay, cool. We'll do some marketing for you. When we buy it, you take it down, whatever. We'll JV the deals. So I got a couple of those guys locally that are looking for, fix and flip type of deals. And I got my brother in the business now. So he's about a year into it, trying to figure out the wholesale game. You know him. He's obviously using Revamp software, which has been awesome. And so now I do it more about, it's not about the money. Now it's like, how do I help these guys create something? I say he's my little brother, but I mean, dude, he's almost 40. And, it's like, how do I create a real business that'll create real impact? He gets married, he has kids, he has a family. Like, how do I put him in business essentially and give him the keys to the castle of what I know and let him go run with it? So I get a lot more joy and a lot more peace with helping other people grow their business, whether it's through direct coaching or whether it's through like joint venturing. So legacy has always been a word that I would kind of associate with you as a brand, right? Yeah, that's one of your company names as well, right? What does that mean to you? What does legacy mean to you? Yeah, I think about it a lot because I think it's definitely overused, especially since we coined it. Well, I didn't coin the word, obviously. Well, everybody had to go and copy you, man.
Now everyone's got legacy something. But, to me early on, it kind of has its roots in like the training and educational component. Like I've always thought, to me, it's not about of course, I'm going to make money. My kids are good. I'm going to be safe. But it's like, what does your kids learn from some shit that I taught 8 years ago that you remember and you pass down to them? Like,
Yeah, man.
legacy is about that ripple effect, right? It's the butterfly effect. I'm going to throw a rock in a pond and there's going to be some friggin' tsunami 10 years from now. You know, that's our legacy. I want my kids to be successful because of what they learned from me, not because of what I handed to them. I want your kids to be successful. I want my brother's kids to be successful. I want the next generation to learn something, and we don't get credit for it, dude. They don't know where it came from. They don't know who said it or when it was said. But effectively, we help, benefit someone in the future. And that to me has always been kind of what legacy's for. I'm not building all these self-storages for myself. I'm building it for the future. And so that to me is important.
I love that, man. That's so deep on so many levels. And just as you were saying that, I kind of remembered back. I don't know if you're going to remember this, but I think, and it kind of ties to the whole 7 layers deep thing as well, because I think I was at a round table that you were hosting, and I was talking about like kind of just projections of the number of flips that I wanted to do. And at that point I was kind of transitioning from doing more flips to more wholesale. And I forget what the number I threw out was. Let's say hypothetically, I had said to you in the group, I was like, yeah, I want to wholesale 200 houses a year. And you challenged me, right? Like you pushed back, like why 200?
Yeah.
And for me, even then, the number wasn't correlated to the revenue or the profit that I would be able to make. And I couldn't articulate this as good then as I can now. But I do remember that I pushed back, and my response was, the reason that I want to do 200 transactions a year or whatever is so I can touch more deals and touch more people's lives and make an impact. Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny now, coming full circle, like everything that I've focused on for the past 2 years, man, it's been software.
Yeah.
And if you look at what I'm doing from a logical financial perspective, what I'm doing is insane, man. Like I put my business where I was able to profit a crap ton of money that I was doing a really good job in. I put it on the back burner to instead go chase something that I knew nothing about, that high likelihood that I'm going to fail and everything's going to go wrong. And the reason that I did that is because I feel that it has more probability and possibility of making impact at scale than any other thing that I could focus on.
Yeah.
And now that I'm kind of in an echo chamber somewhat of people actually getting results and having real world experience, it's like, still, who knows what's going to happen, right? It's like software, who knows, right? Yeah. But that impact, and to kind of your point of legacy, like that's what was meaningful to me, and that's what I was chasing, and that's what I was after. I didn't know early on, right? Like most people early on, it's like we're chasing money. That's all we fucking know. Yeah. It's like, I want more money.
Yeah.
And, through that, you kind of go through some evolutions internally and externally and with your businesses and everything. Yeah. And man, it's crazy to think of. And I just have so much of where I'm at today to be grateful to you. And I really do appreciate you.
Yeah, brother. I appreciate that, man. I mean, really what you're talking about is the 5 freedoms, right? And I think that, one of the reasons I push back and I challenge people on these big ideas is, first and foremost, you always have financial freedom. That's what everyone's chasing. How do I get to financial freedom? How do I make more money each month than I spend? That's number one. Then we go into time freedom. Okay, I'm making money. Now I don't have time to spend with my kids. How do we do time freedom? Okay, cool, we can do that. Then we go into freedom of relationships, right? Now I got time and money. You just said it. Why do I join masterminds? I get connections, I get connectivity. I can start to expand. That allows me the 4th one, which is geographical freedom. Now I can be where I want, do what I want, with who I want, when I want, all that kind of good stuff. But the 5th one, and probably the most important one, and it's very hard to do the 5th one without the first 4 in alignment. And that's probably why it took you this long to kind of, not this long, but, took you some time to get into alignment. You have the finances, you have the time, you have the geographic, now it's impact. The 5th freedom is impact, the freedom to create impact. And, for a lot of reasons, that's what most of us are truly chasing. So when someone says, I want to make $100,000 a month, but then they can't answer why, now we start to tie it back. Let's reverse engineer it. What do you really need to make? Well, if I made 50, it'd be more than I could ever. Okay, cool. What do you want to do with that money? Oh, I don't know. I never thought about it. Let's talk about charity. Let's talk about contribution. Let's talk about growth. Where can you reinvest it in yourself? Where can you reinvest in the team? Where can you give back? Where can you donate time or do a keynote speech, or like I know you're very active in the real estate community. You did a speech last night, right? That's impact, dude. All of this stuff you're doing in the software and the speaking stuff is all impact. And I think that you got to give yourself credit for that, because most people don't reach that fifth freedom. They don't get to make an impact. In fact, they go from the cradle to the grave without ever making an impact. And that's why they're never heard of again, unfortunately. Most people, right? So I think what you're creating is amazing, and I think that you are going to impact. And I think that, when you flip back and go, okay, 200 wholesale deals, well, you could be doing 2,000 wholesale deals through that software, right? And so I think that that's amazing. But again, I think that impact piece is something that most of us don't get to touch, unfortunately.
Yeah. Selfishly, I have to ask a question here.
Go ahead.
Knowing me, and I know we haven't been in super tight contact for the last little bit and everything, but looking from almost an outside perspective in, and knowing me at a deeper level, what do you think today I need to work on? What am I kind of lacking in?
I mean, we don't talk regularly enough to really pinpoint that. I get a little deeper with you.
I know.
One thing that I just caught you saying, and I'm going to call you out on it because I don't ever want you to say it again, is that the software company is probably going to fail, right? Because our words become real. I don't care. Yeah. And so even though that was just a thought, or maybe it was a joke or as a haha moment, the reality of it is I'm going to consistently tell people until I give up on self-storage, I'm going to build 100 self-storage facilities in 10 years. Right? Yeah. I'm 5 years in, dude. We're at like 15. There's no chance in hell I'm hitting 100. But my belief is that I'm built for that. Our team is built for that. My team could build 20 a year if economics were different and if the environment were different. I could still hit 100 a year, 110. Yep. I want you to think about that outcome that you really want the software to create, impact-wise, financial-wise, joint venture, relationships, whatever it's doing for you. And I want to create a crystal clear image of what it's going to look like when it's successful, not if it's successful.
I love that.
Because that'll pull you through the shit times. That'll pull you through the financials up and down. That'll pull you through God knows what quirks and shit happen in the software world. I'm not in that world, but I'm sure shit breaks all the time and APIs don't connect and God knows what, right?
It's chaos. Yeah,
That's the chaos that you'll start to love because you're thinking about the greater good it's going to cause.
Yeah.
And so just focusing on that outcome and being crystal clear on what the outcome is, I think will be awesome. And I have no doubt that you'll be one of the top softwares out there. And I'm not saying it to blow smoke up your ass. I've used it. It's freaking cool. And I think that that's a testament to your the emotional energy and attachment you have to this thing. Is you are a flipper who's a developer who's trying to do software at the same time. And that reminds me actually of one of our old friends that we should talk about after the podcast is doing the same thing in software, but we'll talk about that later.
Nice.
Your guests don't care about that.
Just you kind of calling that out and thinking through it, like, yes, language does matter, verbiage does matter, and internal belief. And I was actually just talking to a guy at breakfast about exactly this. Like, the question that he asked me at breakfast is like, are you taking in outside money with the software? And up until this point, dude, I'm like, oh my God, I have so much money into it. Over $1 million wrapped up at this point of my own money. And I've thought about this starting like maybe in the last month or so. And I was afraid to bring in money. And I think the reason for that is I don't know what I don't know yet, right? Yeah. Like I can very easily and very confidently borrow money from anybody with real estate. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy the property for this. I'm going to spend this. I'm going to sell it for this. In this time frame, right? Yeah. With everything that I'm doing with software, dude, it's been trial by fire, right? Shoot from the hip. And I don't feel comfortable telling you, hey, Joe, I need $500,000. And not only do I not really have a plan of like where we're going to be at in 6 months, but man, like the reality is the likelihood of any software actually taking off to the level of, mass proportion isn't great. However, and here's where I differ, but I think this is why my language is the way I just said it. Dude, I don't believe with a single ounce of my body. I should frame that differently. I do believe with every ounce of my body that I am going to achieve what I set out to do with this.
There you go.
Because
that's better.
Dude, I'll fucking die before but I also think to most people, it sounds absolutely delusional and like I'm a fucking crazy person because there's no track record to prove that I should be able to do what I'm doing.
So, like, I hate right now that Elon is such a political name, because up until 6 months ago, he was everybody's idea of the perfect visionary, right?
Yeah, man.
Right? A lot of people don't know this, but there's a really good story about Elon sending space rockets up. Did I ever tell you this story? You ever heard this story? Do you know how many rockets he had to send? Well, no, let me reframe that story.
I'm a big Elon fanboy, so I probably know, but hit me.
All right, so at the beginning of SpaceX, it cost $1 billion to launch a rocket. $1 billion. Now, he took, I could be wrong about this, it was either his PayPal money or Tesla stock or something, and he started SpaceX. He spent $1 billion sending the first rocket up, and what happened?
Blew up.
It exploded. Okay. Goes and pulls another $1 billion out of his ass. Sends up another rocket. What happens on the third one? Second one.
Blows up,
explodes.
baby.
He goes out and he borrows $1 billion for rocket number 3. Sends it up. What happens?
I don't know. Did it
Blow up. Okay. So now it is Christmas Eve. Don't quote me on the year. You guys can, this is a real story. You can go look it up. He tells it all the time, by the way. He tells it better than I do. But Christmas Eve, and he's now $2 billion short of sending the next rocket because he still has to pay for the one that just blew up. He's in 60 to 90 day arrears with all of his suppliers, all of his inventory, all of his logistics guys. He owes all of them billions of dollars, and he needs to send up the 4th rocket. So he starts calling around all of his billionaire buddies. And on New Year's Eve of the same year, he gets a check for like $2.5 billion from like 10 guys that came together. What happened to the 4th rocket?
Blow up?
No, it went up.
Did it?
And it was successful.
Okay.
And so the thing about it is, you got to realize this guy's vision is what? It's to populate Mars. It's so fucking utterly impossible. It'll never happen in his lifetime, no matter what, right? It can't. It's not like technologically possible
to populate.
Okay,
Yeah.
to
be
get
there.
bodies on Mars. Okay, so why is it that some of the best engineers in the world took pay cuts, relocated to Austin, Texas, left their families behind, left massive corporations, left Microsoft and Facebook and all these other tech companies? Because they believe in a vision that's so greater than anything else that they're willing to sacrifice to show up for that vision. That's the perspective that you need to have.
Yeah,
that's the vision you need to have, is I'm going to become the best tech software, bar none. I don't care what, because nobody cares about it the way I care about it. Yeah. And I'm going to keep solving problems until I do it. And that's the vision.
Brother. That's massive. Yeah. Role models, just thinking of Elon, right? Because it's like, I would definitely say that he is probably one of my greatest role models, and I've studied him a lot, right? Like, do you have any people that you kind of really look up to in that lens?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I think a lot of my role models are people that you've probably never heard of that are at a position that, I can name five guys that have built self-storage empires that are 50 to 80 units that are worth $4 billion, from zero. In that industry, that's what I think about. When I think of coaching, my coach, Trevor McGregor, is one of my role models. He's a freaking absolute rock star. He spent 15 years with Tony Robbins before he went out on his own and started doing his own thing. So when I think about coaching, I think I have role models in those different fields, like jiu-jitsu. I mean, my role model is Phil Megler-Reese. He's the 6th-degree black belt. He's probably one of the, he's probably one of a dozen 6th-degree black belts in the country. Yeah. So when I think about jiu-jitsu, I want to be like Phil one day. I'll never get there, but that's what I think about when I think about that. I think it's really, really important that when you think about role models, to me, and one of my mentors taught me this really early on, but it was like, never ever be jealous, or envious. Just ask how. And so, like, I've always thought about people that are at a different level than me. I've never looked and went like, oh man, I can't believe that some bitch has that. It's like, more I think about, like, what did he do to get that?
Yeah, man.
How do I create that? And then why does he seem so peaceful? But again, problems are perspective, right? So you find out that guy that's worth, $1 billion, he can't sleep at night, or, whatever. I mean, all of us are going through our own thing at different times, but I think it's good to have, that visionary or somebody that you want to kind of aim for in different worlds.
Dude, I love that. Yeah. Last question, landing the plane.
All right.
All the wisdom that you have, all the businesses that you've been through, the profits, the losses, the trials and tribulations and everything. Yeah. If you could go back to when you're getting out of the Navy and everything with the knowledge that you have today, would you have done anything different?
I get that question a lot. And I don't really know. Different would be the answer. I think I would try things faster. I think I would kind of fail faster. The things that took me forever to learn take a lot of people forever to learn, Drew. Like, one of the things that I say all the time and people don't realize is like being an entrepreneur. First of all, we're crazy. We're insane.
Totally.
I mean, but it's like 90% failing and 10% winning.
Yeah.
People look and go, oh, you got the cars, you got the house, you got the family. Dude, I get punched in the mouth every single day. And so like, is it rewarding? Absolutely. When something big happens or a deal goes through or one of my people win really big or one of my coaching clients has, one of my clients hit me up last week. We were having a call and he was saying that this year is his, and he's in his 50s. He's already made more money in 2025 than he ever made in a single year. And he's going to triple that probably by the end of the year. Right. So like that kind of stuff, dude, that fires me up, man. It fires me up more than me making my own money. Like, man, I love to see people win. So for me, it's like I get kicked in the teeth 9 times out of 10 just so I can be standing there for that 10th to come across. And to me, that's the win. That's what I have to focus on. I have to avoid getting tied into all that other drama because the reality of it is you're only winning 10% of the time if you're really lucky.
Dude, I love that. Yeah. I love that. So if people want to reach out to you, social media, where are they finding you? Yeah,
I mean, look, I'm easy to find anywhere on social media. I would say this because mostly I think you have a pretty local audience. I don't know that to be a fact. Maybe you have a nationwide audience, but I would actually include, and I'll send it to you, it's called bookingwithjoe.com. Any one of your people that are listening that are struggling with a business partnership or want to start something new or, they want to scale and they just don't know how, or maybe they're afraid of scaling and they want to create a consistent, predictable income. They can hit that link up. It takes them to a free call, no sales, no pressure. I love analyzing people's business and just trying to help them get to the next level. And if coaching becomes part of that, so be it. But I love spending 15, 20 minutes with somebody and just kind of giving them some high level advice and letting them run with it and see if it works. So I'll include that link as well as in the bio.
That's fantastic. Joe, thanks so much for coming on. Again, I feel that I owe a huge debt to you because you have helped mold me into the guy that I am today and the business owner I am today. And not just that, right? It's deeper. It's also like it's made an impact in my family and everything that we've been talking about throughout this podcast, right? Like it's not just the business success, it's working on yourself and figuring out why we do the things that we do. And I am deeply,
you did all the work, brother. You did all the work, brother. I'm proud to see where you're at and what you're doing and what you got going on. So
Joe,
much
thanks
luck.
so much for coming on, brother.
All right, man.